Hey Zen fam, before you ask, this was made a few years ago by a fan. Um, it's just a t-shirt, don't worry about it, it's not part of the merch store. In fact, this existed before the merch store, which you should totally visit. Anyway, you may remember a while ago I spoke about the hope that Assassin's Creed Mirage brings to the future of the AAA video game industry. That perhaps smaller, tighter, more focused games with smaller budgets and less bloated structures could very well be a positive future for gaming. However, with that positivity, we also have to look at something I don't like to do on this channel, the positive negativity that could be coming down the road for the gaming industry, for you and for me. You see, there's a chance, there's a possibility that we could be heading for the second great gamer crash. Yeah. See, the thing of it is, boys and girls, back in the 70s, there was a crash in gaming. You can Google it, it was nasty. The E.T. game on Atari and all the rest of it. Games buried in the desert. And gaming looked for a while like it was dead and gone. Now, admittedly, gaming is so big now that it would be technically hard for it to actually completely and utterly go away. Considering that gaming itself as an industry is worth more than the music industry and the film industry combined. So, there's that particular saving grace. However, gaming as it stands at the moment, in some very important ways, is no doing itself any favours. Let's be fair about that. I mean, come on. Some of the things that are happening right now are a bit scary. We have companies gobbling each other up, so they're creating monopolies, which is always a fun time. I mean, look what happens in other forms of media when monopolies are created. In fact, just in business in general, when monopolies are created, you only have to look at American internet infrastructure for that. Our American brothers and sisters in the Zen fam will probably be already typing away in the comments about how awful their internet infrastructure is. Because it's not just you're in a town and you've only got one or two providers to choose from. Generally speaking, you're in a town and you've got one provider. And because they don't have any competition, because they own that region, they give the worst service possible. In fact, the worst service impossible in some cases. So, there's that kind of thing to contend with. Then we also have to look at the fact that internet crunch is a thing and there's industry burnout, so that's not great. There are people who are leaving the industry. Then you also have to consider that a lot in the last couple of years we've lost a lot of games media bodies, or a lot of them at least have slimmed down their operations. So there's less news generated by official sources, admittedly leaving, excuse me, a lot of it to guys like me, which is fine because that means, you know, guys like me can rise to the forefront, bring you guys news in a more human face-to-face way, which I personally think is nicer. You know, that you can actually get me coming at you. I'm not some AI bot. You know, I'm not being created by some algorithm. I'm me doing it my way. Which I think is rare these days, and there's a lot of AI stuff coming into YouTube at the minute. It's like, make this image, make this background, have this face, have this voice, and it all, some of them times you're seeing 2 or 3 of these different tools come together, taking the you, i.e. the human, out of YouTube, but that's not what we're talking about today. But one of the biggest problems that we see right now in the games industry is the fact that these mega corporations that make gigantic amounts of money are laying off people left, right and centre. And it's maddening because these dev studios, they need to have people around to make the games. But then the games are taking so long to make because they're becoming bigger and more complex, and need more time and more people on them to actually make them, that it becomes expensive to keep them around after the game has been made. So then they get rid of a lot of people, but then those people need to be around to make the next game from the studio, whether that be a series or the next title that the studio is considering. And we've seen a lot of layoffs over the last year alone. Hell, just the last 2-3 months, we've seen a lot of layoffs in the game development industry. That's kind of scary, especially for the people who work there. But you know what really is abysmal about the whole thing is the fact that the people who are needed are the ones that are gotten rid of. But you know who sticks around? Who always sticks around? Who never loses a job? Who never has their salary cut? The CEOs. Isn't it always the way? It's us, the workers, that make the products that the companies sell to make the money. But it's the people at the tippity top who have, let's face it, next to nothing to do with actually how the games are made, who walk away with massive amounts of money, share options and all the rest of it. Now, apparently, like a CEO's job, okay, is to chart the way that the company is going and the way that it's thinking about doing things in order to make shareholders happy. And it's like, nah. From what most of us can tell, they basically sit in a room and go, right, yous lot do that, yous lot do that, yous lot do that. And then those guys go down to the next bunch of guys, go, yous lot do that, hey, yous lot do that, and hey, yous lot do that. And then it breaks down, and then it gets to your average worker who are pulled pillar to post, rattling out work as fast as they can. And for a couple of years there, they were having to do it at home, so they didn't even have all the infrastructure of their studio behind them, and they're still knocking out fantastic games. I mean, we're at a point now, we've got so many games coming out so quickly of such high caliber, that for all the want in the world and all this free time, even if you were like a bloke that didn't even have to work, you had like a trust fund to live off, you could never get through all these games that are coming out. Now there's too many games, which admittedly is a lovely problem to have, but it's a problem nonetheless. Now yeah, I know it's like, hey, first world problems, eh? Yes, but the thing of the matter is, as you're probably considering, you, the audience, you want somebody like me or other YouTubers in my field to be able to talk about the games in a complete and cogent manner. But we can't play all the games. We can play some of the games. Some of us YouTubers who are able to make YouTube our livelihoods are able to play more of the games and talk on more of the games. But there's also the production aspect of videos, so it's like that work-life gaming balance. It's tricky. I mean, I'm a working father. In fact, some of the viewers here on the ZenFam, some of you actually work in the same place I do. I mean, you know how hard it is to have a life and work where we work. So it's not easy, is it now, boys and girls? No. Anyone in the ZenFam, I imagine, has probably got a job, unless they're obviously of a certain age, and can say wholeheartedly, life is not easy. and it's hard to find the time to actually get some games in and still be a fully functional human being. But let me give you an idea about some of the stuff some of these CEO guys actually get up to. For instance, this is Bobby Kotick. Now, Bobby Kotick is infamous, to say the very least. He's the guy behind, Activision Blizzard. And Mr. Kotick has had some rather serious allegations levelled against him over the years. And when you look behind where I was standing, you'll see the kind of money that Bobby's pulling in. It's not exactly insignificant. In fact, it's at a level where if his employees were to work every second of every day, they couldn't make in a year what he makes in a day. It's ridiculous. And I just don't honestly see what someone like Kotick actually brings to a company. He seems to me to be a drain. In fact, another drain on resources would easily be the likes of Andrew Wilson. Andrew Wilson, who often is called by people like James Stephen Sterling as Android Wilson, because clearly he's not human. Andy here is basically, how can I put this? He's behind Take-Two. Take-Two is one of the biggest publishing companies there is. They're the guys that publish the Grand Theft Auto games. So when Rockstar puts out a game, it goes through Take-Two to come out. Borderlands comes through Take-Two to come out, and other titles, of course. So they're the company that distribute the games that have been made by those hard-working, undervalued, underappreciated game development teams. And you can see here the kind of cash that Mr. Wilson's pulling in. And yet again, it's another situation where makes so much ridiculous amounts of money that it's almost unfathomable the amount of cash that he's raking in for basically just going, you do that, you do that, you do that, and you go down to the people below you and tell them what to do from what I've told you to do. And then the final insult, the final one, oh God, Strauss Zelnick. Wow. This guy, not only is a billionaire, not only does he not value his workers, but he also likes to spend his time on the covers of magazines going, look how ripped I am. The guy works out. No play to the guy. I mean, obviously he does work out and he looks good on it. But, yeah. Do you think your employees below you have the kind of time and money to be able to get that ripped and have a full-time job and make anywhere near what you make, Strauss? I got it wrong, sorry. It's Andrew Wilson who's behind EA, sorry. So all the EA stuff is Wilson's doing. It's Strauss, sorry, who's behind Take-Two and Rockstar and blah blah blah. Sorry, I've mixed it up in my head there for a second. I got that all. It's basically, I'm making this video at 3:45 in the morning because I spent too long mucking about with these images behind me here. Sorry, a little bit of how the sausage is made. In fact, you're seeing this video about almost a week after I've actually physically made it, because right now as we speak, I'm on holiday. I'm in the Lake District. So maybe there's been a short while I've been away, I don't know, because I can't tell the future. If I have made a short, I hope you enjoyed it. But basically, we've got all this money swirling around at the top level, and at the bottom level, we've got dismissals. Eventually, with games being trickier and trickier to make, taking longer and longer and longer to make, and being more and more and more expensive, and a shrinking staff, and people at the top taking more and more and more money, something's gonna go. Is like, it's just not a sustainable model. Now, a few years ago, some of you may have heard of this, the top guys at Nintendo, or at least one of the top guys at Nintendo, I can't remember exactly how it goes, I'll have to Google it later, remind myself, but it's a common story, and it's someone at Nintendo basically went, okay, Nintendo's not looking so rosy at the moment, I'm a CEO, I'm actually going to take a pay cut. Wow. To actually have that thought process and follow it through was just amazing. And I could never actually think of any of the past 3 guys even considering that notion. We live in a time where people like Elon Musk can come along, buy Twitter, change its name, change its operations, make it like a zillion times worse, open it up to right-wing nut jobs, and nothing happens to the guy. You know, he's no longer the richest guy in America or whatever. Now he's like 3rd richest or something. And like Bezos can basically be a union busting piece of filth and just get away with it. His workers can try to strike, can try to form a union, but they don't have that much luck. There's been some, admittedly, some luck in the union movement within Amazon. Much the self can also be said of Starbucks. Starbucks has been some good union movement in the States, but the guys at the top who love to make all the money, they actually go and have big meetings where they bring in a bunch of people from a bunch of stores and they tell them about how unions will threaten their jobs and how it's not really community thinking and how it's bad for the company, and in some cases they've closed stores that have been unionized, which is illegal. Oh yes, under American law, union busting measures like that are actually technically illegal, but they don't care, because the fact of the matter is, these gigantic mega corporations, even if you do put them through the court system, all they get is a fine. And you know what? In their accounting, they actually have they have funds to deal with fines. So a fine to a rich guy is just a fine. A fine to a poor person is more than a fine. Put it this way. If a poor person gets fined from a driving offence and can't pay the fine for the driving offence, they either go to prison and or lose their car, which then means they can't earn money to get to and from their job, or even it might be their job to drive. So then they can never have the car, never have the money, and probably go to prison, and then after that never probably able to be employed again because of a criminal record. Whilst if you're rich, you just pay the fine. The rich can do what they like, and us the workers basically just get stepped on. So when people talk about the idea that like maybe games should be more than 70 quid, you know what my response to that is? My response to that is basically, if games are going to be more than 70 quid, then I would only be alright with that as long as there was a cast iron assurance that the development team would see more money And those people at the very tippity top would see no increase to their already obscene salaries. That's my only stipulation. If games really need to be more expensive, fine. But they get to be more expensive if the people who actually make the actual games get paid more. That's the only way it goes off in my book. Anything else is just exploitation and greed. And that is one thing that can most certainly, if not kill the gaming industry, then damage it significantly. Which is where we are headed if things don't start to change really soon. Just greed and corruption and microtransactions and loot boxes and season passes. I'm old enough to remember when a game would come out and a game would be all there. Everything you needed to do for the game to be was on the cartridge or the disc, depending on when you're talking. And if it wasn't there, it wasn't part of the game. There was a time when we didn't have downloads for games. There was no day one patch. There was no DLC. We've gotten to a point where just a matter of about a little more than a decade, somebody came on stage and went, "Hey, look at this. You can buy this armor for your horse." And it was roundly panned by the entire internet of gamers. And everybody laughed at it and everyone went, "That's so silly. Nobody's going to buy that. That's just rubbish." And admittedly, at the time, nobody did, and the comment proved to be true. Look where we are now. We have it as a case where people will actually spend real money on outfits for characters in games that in 2 to 3 to 5, maybe 6 years, that game will go away. There won't be anything on the disc. There won't be anything on the server. The game will literally just out of existence. And all the money that was ever spent on that game goes with it. Look at sports games, especially football or soccer. You know, how many times have we seen a FIFA come out? Or was it now it's a EA soccer sports something? I don't know. I'm not a football guy. And you have a list of players, and that list of players is obviously, you know, attuned for the year the game comes out. But you have your card pack malarkey where you earn players and you can buy players and stuff, and it's just obscenity on top of obscenity on top of obscenity. Buying parts of the game when back in the day, if you wanted the special costume or the special weapon or the special car or the extra map, you had to play the actual game and perform actions in the game to earn more parts of the game, which to my mind made the game more alive because you were more invested in it. If you wanted extra costumes in Soul Blade, you had to perform particular actions in Soul Blade, the game, to get those costumes, get those weapons. I mean, you've all heard my Soul Blade story from my mid-20s when I stayed up like something like 50 hours to get everything in the game. Maybe the next time I have a live stream, one of you could ask the question and I could tell the story again for some of you new people. But yeah, it's all just a big mess right now. And we need to be very careful, and I think there needs to be more voices out there saying the workers should definitely get paid more, and the actors of gaming, voice actors and physical actors that do the motion capture stuff, those boys or girls, they need to be paid as well. Because as you're sure you know that at this moment, there's a strike. Because the people who bring life to the on-screen characters through motion capture, facial capture, and performance capture are hugely underpaid. And they're trying to do the same thing to them that they're trying to do to the traditional actors of Hollywood and, of course, television in the States, and probably eventually here too, where they replace them all with AI. I tell you, this AI is everywhere. I mean, in some cases, in some ways, it's really clever and it's really making things happen in interesting ways that can expand and grow the field of entertainment in new and interesting directions. But in some ways, it's cutting people out, and not in a fun way, in a people won't have a job way. So stay vigilant, Zen fam. Look out for deep fakes. Look out for things that don't look quite right. It's getting harder and harder, so keep your eyes peeled. Of course, always keep your eyes peeled for the actual merch, my actual merch store, not this. And of course, as always, hashtag support Scottish YouTubers. And as always, nae bother.